The 1970s, a time that was truly swanky. If you lived in a house back then, chances are your interior looked like it stepped right out of a trendy greeting card. Thick carpet, bold colors, and everything soaked in the kind of extravagance that defined the era. The early years of the 70s were all about abundance and showing off, before heading into the latter half of the decade, when things became a little less glamorous, especially during the Jimmy Carter years. But if there was one thing that still left an impression, it was the cars. Before the 5 impact regulations came into effect, in 1973 for the front and 1974 for the rear, American car design had reached a high point in both size and aesthetics. Cars back then weren't just big, they were beautiful. Grand, elegant, and unmistakably American. And today we're taking a look back at what I consider the best-looking cars of the 1970s. Not sports cars, not imports, just full-size and intermediate models from the Big Four of Detroit: GM, Ford, Chrysler, and yes, even AMC. Ready to turn back the clock? Let's begin. 1971 to 1972 Ford Ltd. By the early 70s, Ford wasn't just building full-size cars, they were redefining what a full-size American car could look like. And the 1971 to 1972 Ford Ltd. was a bold departure from what came before. Gone was the softer, rounder look of 1970. In its place, a sharply sculpted front end with a long, protruding nose and sleek, hidden headlights that gave the LTD a commanding, almost regal presence. This wasn't by accident. It was the work of Bunky Knudsen, former head of Pontiac, who had just moved to Ford and wanted their lineup to look more like, well, Pontiacs, and it worked. Whether you went with the two-door coupe or the four-door hardtop, the LTD looked strong, confident, and unmistakably masculine. Step inside and things didn't disappoint. The cabin was spacious, the seats were plush, and the build quality, at least for the time, was solid and dependable. Under the hood, you had your pick: the 351, the 400, or the mighty 429 cubic inch V8. No matter the choice, these engines delivered quiet strength with every mile. In many ways, the 71 to 72 Ltd. represented the last of a breed. Full-size Fords that offered presence, power, and poise, all wrapped in one handsome, well-built package. 9. 1970 to 1972 Lincoln Continental. If the Ford Ltd. was strong and confident, the Lincoln Continental was something else entirely. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. And in 1970, Lincoln made a bold move. They brought the Continental back to its roots with a full body-on-frame design after nearly a decade of unibody construction. The result? A big, heavy, dignified machine that didn't just cruise, it glided. Visually, it was impossible to ignore. That long, coffin-like nose, the squared-off fenders that stretched all the way to the corners, and when it was finished in black, no vinyl top, no chrome trim, just paint and steel, it didn't just look elegant, it looked dangerous, like something the mob would roll up in, slow and silent. Inside, it was all about quiet luxury. The dash wrapped around you in a soft racetrack shape, complete with rolling drum gauges and oversized controls. Materials were richer than what Cadillac was offering at the time, and the layout felt purposeful, serious. Under the hood, a 460 cubic inch V8 that barely made a sound. No roar, no rumble, just effortless torque and a smoothness that had to be felt to be believed. This was peak Lincoln, confident, composed, and commanding, a rolling monument to American luxury at its finest. 8. 1976 to 1977, Pontiac Grand Prix. By the mid-70s, federal safety rules had reshaped the look of American cars, literally. Big bumpers, blocky proportions, and clunky add-ons became the new normal. But Pontiac? They still found a way to make it work. The 1976 to 1977 Grand Prix wasn't just a survivor of that design era. It was one of its rare standouts. From the front, it had all the attitude you'd expect from Pontiac. That pointed arrowhead nose, the fine vertical grille that split the bumper like a blade. Out back, the deck lid tapered just enough to suggest a hint of performance, almost a boat-tail look without going overboard. And the body? Smooth, confident, with just the right amount of flair. Inside, it was all about options. If you got one with the bucket seats and center console, it felt upscale, almost European in layout. Sure, the wood trim was fake, but the dashboard wrapped around you in a way that said, "This car means business." Under the hood, 1976 was the last year you could get the mighty 455 V8. By 1977, that was gone, replaced by smaller 400 and 301 options. Still solid, still capable, but not quite the same punch. In a world of compromised designs, the Grand Prix stood tall. It looked good, drove well, and held on to its Pontiac soul, right up to the very end. 7. 1971 to 1972 Mercury Marquis Coupe. If there was ever a car that looked like it was sketched by a designer with a ruler in one hand and a dream in the other, it was the 1971 to 1972 Mercury Marquis Coupe. Long, low, and unapologetically grand, this thing didn't just roll down the street, it made an entrance. With a low-slung roofline, hidden headlights, and a profile that seemed to stretch for days, the Marquis had presence. Massive presence. The rear deck? It was so long you'd swear you could land a helicopter back there. And that wasn't far from the truth. The rear fenders flowed back with a graceful sweep, and the roofline had a distinctive kick-up at the quarter glass that gave it a subtle, fastback silhouette. Inside, the low roof did make things feel a little tight, especially for taller drivers, but the overall build quality was impressive. Ford gave the Marquis better sound insulation and tighter panel gaps than most of its competitors. It felt solid, well-made, thought out. Under the hood, the Marquis came with a 429 cubic inch V8, either 2-barrel or 4-barrel, and later in 72, you could even option up to the big 460. Smooth, torquey, and every bit as confident as the car looked. This was Mercury at its boldest, and arguably its best. 6. 1972 Chrysler Imperial Coupe. Some cars whisper luxury. The 1972 Chrysler Imperial, it growled it, quietly but with authority. This was Mopar's flagship, and they didn't hold back. From the moment you saw that face, sharp, inverted, and unmistakably bold, you knew this wasn't just another big Chrysler. The hidden headlights blended seamlessly into a front end that almost looked like the rear of another car. And that was the point. It defied convention. Along the sides, the fuselage styling continued. No sharp creases, no chrome gimmicks, just smooth, uninterrupted lines that gave the car a kind of stealth elegance. Out back, vertical taillights stood tall, offering a nod to Cadillac, but in a way that was pure imperial. Step inside, and it's another world. Thickly padded dash, button-tufted leather seats, rear reading lamps, hand straps, and a level of plushness that would have made a living room jealous. Chrysler may have cut corners on some models, but not here. And under that long hood, a 440 cubic inch V8, putting out around 225 horsepower, more than enough for smooth, effortless cruising. Thanks to its unique front suspension cradle, the ride was glassy smooth, even by Imperial standards. Menacing, refined, unapologetically massive. The 72 Imperial wasn't just luxury, it was intimidation in a three-piece suit. Piatti. 1970 prvi do 1970 drugi Cadillac Eldorado. If the Imperial was a velvet hammer, the 1971 to 1972 Cadillac Eldorado was a chrome-edged scalpel. Wide, sharp, and unapologetically bold. Cadillac took their iconic personal luxury coupe and stretched it to the limit, both literally and stylistically. The razor-edge body lines gave it a crisp, sculpted look, and the massive one-piece hood made sure nobody mistook this for anything but a Cadillac. The four-fender theme was unmistakable. Prominent front and rear arches outlined the shape like a frame around a painting. And from the rear, that beveled deck lid, paired with ultra-wide proportions, made the Eldorado look even broader than it already was. It didn't just have presence, it had posture. But not all the design decisions were winners. The opera window, a last-minute addition, disrupted what could have been a sleek, hard-top flow. It didn't ruin the car, but it certainly softened the edge. Under the hood, a monster 500 cubic inch V8, one of the largest ever put in a production car. It was more than enough to move this front-wheel drive cruiser with authority. Sadly, the interior didn't quite live up to the exterior promise. The dash looked plain, the materials felt thin, it looked like money on the outside. But once you got in, that illusion faded just a bit. Still, from the curb, the Eldorado was all flash, all presence, and unmistakably Cadillac. 4. 1972 Dodge Monaco. Sometimes a car doesn't have to shout to stand out. The 1972 Dodge Monaco didn't come with exaggerated fins or over-the-top chrome. What it had instead was balance, clean lines, quiet confidence, and a kind of understated beauty that's easy to miss until it's right in front of you. This was the final facelift of Dodge's fuselage era, just before the massive bumper mandates of 1973 came in and wrecked half the lineup's proportions. Up front, the hidden headlamps gave the Monaco a sleek, almost mysterious look. Out back, a full-width taillight stretched across the rear end, amplifying the car's already impressive width. Along the side, the bodywork was smooth and unbroken, with a graceful skeg line that swept up from the front wheel arch and carried all the way through the rear quarter. It was subtle, but elegant, and it gave the Monaco a kind of motion, even when parked. Inside, nothing fancy. The materials were serviceable, the layout conventional, but it got the job done. And out on the road, the car felt big, planted, and surprisingly composed. In the grand scheme of 1970s land yachts, the Monaco is one of those designs that often gets overlooked, but absolutely deserves a second glance. Quiet class, done right. 3. 1972 Lincoln Continental, Mark IV. If the Dodge Monaco was all about quiet elegance, the 1972 Lincoln Continental Mark IV was anything but subtle. This car didn't whisper, it posed. Building on the huge success of the Mark III, Lincoln went even bolder in '72. The result? A car that looked like it belonged to a movie villain, with a tailor. From the side, the fenders curved outward in graceful arcs, giving the car a full sculpted presence. The wheels sat tucked deep inside the body, enhancing its broad stance. Out back, the roof tapered into a sharply defined tail, and the tiny greenhouse, those small squinty windows, gave it an almost custom coach-built feel. Low roof, long hood, endless flare. It looked fast. It looked expensive. It looked like it meant business. Under the hood was Lincoln's trusty 460 cubic inch V8, silent, smooth, and full of effortless torque. But the ride? That was another story. With its pillow-soft suspension, the Mark IV floated like a dream. Until you hit the hills. Take it through a mountain pass, and you might just need a motion sickness bag. Still, when parked in front of a country club or pulling up to a black tie event, nothing looked quite like a Mark IV. It was big, it was bold, and it absolutely owned the road, even standing still. 2. 1972 Plymouth Grand Fury Coupe. In a decade full of oversized, chrome-laden giants, the 1972 Plymouth Grand Fury Coupe managed to stand out by doing something different. It embraced restraint. Well, sort of. It was still big, still bold. But instead of relying on flash, it leaned into form. And that form? Pure fuselage styling at its best. The sides of the car were smooth and full, with muscular rear quarters that swelled outward like a battleship's hull. The front end featured a massive loop-style bumper and hidden headlamps that gave it a quiet confidence, like a bar fighter in a tuxedo. It didn't need pinstripes or vinyl roofs to make its point. The sheet metal said it all. From certain angles, it looked almost European in its cleanliness, yet unmistakably American in size and attitude. This was a car that didn't scream for attention. It simply deserved it. Inside, though, was where things fell a little short. Mopar was known for cutting corners on materials, and the Grand Fury was no exception. Plastics felt hard, fabrics felt thin. But let's be honest, you didn't buy this car for the dashboard. You bought it for how it looked rolling down the street. Underrated? Absolutely. But overlooked? Not if you're paying attention. The Grand Fury was quiet charisma on four wheels. 1. 1976 to 1977 Oldsmobile Cutlass Coupe. At the very top of the list sits a car that wasn't just beautiful, it was wildly successful. The 1976 to 1977 Oldsmobile Cutlass Coupe didn't rely on outlandish styling or brute force. Instead, it struck that rare, perfect balance between elegance and approachability. And it all started with a mistake. That signature waterfall grille? It wasn't even planned. Legend has it, during the clay modeling process, a piece of paper draped over the front end by accident, and the design team loved how it looked. So they kept it. And just like that, the Cutlass found its face and its identity. The proportions were spot on, from the gently sloping roofline to the crisp fender lines and neatly tucked rear end. This car looked good from every angle. Inside, it was just as rewarding. Plush seats, relaxed driving position, and enough sound insulation to make every ride feel like a Sunday cruise. Under the hood, Oldsmobile's smooth-running V8s delivered power with grace. Paired with a turbo-hydromatic transmission and a perfectly tuned suspension, the Cutlass didn't just drive well, it glided. It's no surprise this car became one of the best-selling coupes of the decade. Timeless, tasteful, and totally American, the Cutlass wasn't just a great car. It was the car of the 70s. Not every car on this list was a bestseller. Not every name got the Hollywood spotlight or ended up in some multi-million-dollar collection. But what made them special was how they were beautiful in their own way, unmistakably American, and impossible to copy. These were the bold lines before 5 memph bumpers took over, the endless hoods that stretched like highways, the quiet glide of big block V8s that didn't just move you, they surrounded you. And most of all, they were born in a time when design wasn't constrained by regulations, but driven by passion. How about you? Did you ever own, drive, or dream about one of these classics? Or is there another 70s beauty you think deserves a spot on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because your stories are what keep these cars alive in our collective memory. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like to support the channel, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, where mechanical beauty isn't just remembered, it's felt and preserved. See you in the next ride.